Love is Blind Season 2, the finale. Oh no, I am normally hyped, level 8, 9, and 10 on my videos. But if I tell you, I am so emotionally exhausted. I just finished watching the episode like literally 15 minutes ago. I nearly peed my pants like 4 times. My poor husband was like, "What are you screaming about? What are you crying about?" I had every emotion. But anyway, let's get into it. Let's talk about this. I'm going to go in the same order in which they did the weddings. It has nothing to do with which one made me feel a certain kind of way more than the other. I'm just going to go in the order that they did the weddings. So first of all, we got to see the rest of Nick and Danielle's wedding. And the last episode, we saw that Danielle said yes. She went first and she gave her answer first and she said yes. So we really only had to hear what Nick was going to have to say. And let me tell you, he was sweating like a pig. I mean, he had sweat in all areas, in his back, under his arms, in his crotch, in his head, in his hair. I mean, everywhere. I was like, oh my God, Nick is going to say no. He's going to say no. He is sweating like a pig out here. But you know what? He said yes, y'all. I was surprised when I heard it come out his mouth. I was actually surprised. I was thinking Danielle is batshit crazy. Nick is not going to say yes. But after he said yes, I just started thinking about it a little bit. And I said, you know what? I can see him saying yes. Because you know what? Nick was one of the first people in the whole posse to propose. And remember, he proposed very, very early on. And so, you know, he has some really strong feelings coming out the gate. And so the way I look at it is that Danielle was going to have to do a whole lot to get him off of that, get him off that ledge, because he just came in strong. It's interesting because he said on game day, he wasn't really sure what he was going to say. He said he wasn't sure until he was going to get up to that altar. So, and then he also said something interesting. He said the reason he wasn't sure was because he didn't know if she was sure. So this is interesting, the way they say who goes first, who goes second. The fact that Danielle went first and said yes first, I think allowed Nick to say yes. I don't know if Nick would have said yes if he would have gone first, because he really explicitly said that the reason why he wasn't sure was because he wasn't sure she was sure. And I think that played a role in it. Deepti and Shane. Can I say that, can the Indian culture adopt me? Because I want an Indian wedding. And let me tell you, that wedding dress that Deepti had, I thought was beautiful. Out of all the wedding dresses, I really, really liked her wedding dress. I think she looked gorgeous. When they were talking to Shake, when he was like in the room by himself before the wedding, and he was talking about how excited he was, and he could see himself for 20 years, I started to say, oh my God, Shake is going to say yes. And his friends were talking to him and telling him, you know, well, what do you think you're going to look like in 20 years? And his married friends were telling him that in the end, the connection is what you really want. That's way more important than this whole looks thing that you're still focusing on. I really thought it was sinking in with Shake. And I was thinking at that moment, he is going to say yes. When Deepti came down the aisle, she looked beautiful. And when Shake looked at her, he was like, oh my God. It reminded me of what he said to her when she first came out of the pods. He thought that she was gorgeous and she was beautiful. And I was like, oh, he's definitely going to say yes now. He's going to say yes, because you could see it in his eyes. It was almost like he was about to cry. He really looked like he was in love. I was like, oh, he's going to say yes. So in the end, what they did was they made Deepti go first and give her answer. And when Deepti started going in the speech about how much of an impact he has made on her life, but then when she said, I deserve someone who knows for sure, I was like, oh my gosh. I was inside. I was so happy for Deepti. I really was so happy that she chose herself. I was so happy, you guys. I was like, you know what? No woman deserves to be standing at an altar and her husband not feel as if she is beautiful. And I was just always hoping Deepti would never say yes. I thought that she was going to say yes, to be honest with you, because in all the scenes throughout the show, she just seems so enamored. She never put up any fight when he would talk about how he didn't like her. She never talked back about it. So I just felt she had come to this place of accepting it. But when she said no, I was so happy for her. And let me tell you, that man Shake, he looked like he was going to cry. Shake was going to say yes. If they had asked Shake first, Shake would have said yes. And I stand by that. He was going to say yes. And when I tell you that officiant, his face, his look on his face after Deepti said no, awkward. Everybody looked awkward when Deepti said no. All of Shake's friends looked awkward. Everyone looked awkward. And afterwards, look how he handled the embarrassment or the letdown. He talked about, oh, it's okay. It's a celebration. Boy, what are you talking about? He tried to cover it up like he wasn't heard and talking about it's a celebration. It's a 2-year celebration because I'm off on Monday. Ain't nobody celebrating with you. And the other reason I know why he said I know he was going to say yes, because he said he had reservations at Nobu restaurant. I don't know if you guys know, but that's a fancy restaurant. They have sushi. And you know, he and Deepti love sushi. So he had already prearranged reservations at Nobu, and because he thought that she was going to say yes and he was going to say yes. That's another reason why I know he was going to say yes. And when his friend asked him, aren't you a little bit disappointed or sad? And he tried to act like he wasn't. And he said that he was fighting back the tears. He was trying to play this role like, oh, well, I'm glad she said yes. Then that way I didn't have to deliver the bad news. It was all an act, and I know that everybody saw right through it. I saw through it, and I know all of you saw right through it. He was like he was on the fence, and thank God he didn't have to give an answer because his answer might not have been the answer. Boy, we ain't believing it one time. Let me tell you something. Shake went home that night and cried in his pillow. He's probably rolled up in a ball, curled up in a ball, sobbing his eyes out. And when they had the after interview with Deepti and she said, you know what? He's lost the best thing that ever came across him, that's ever come in his life. And when he finally wakes up and realizes it, she said she's going to be long gone. 2 snaps for you, Deepti girl. Go ahead and walk out in that fabulous dress. She said he doesn't deserve me. And it was so true, y'all. It was so true. Natalie and Shane. So we end up finding out that the night before the wedding, they end up getting into a really big fight. Now, I think the fight was over Shane feeling bad about the baseball, doing lousy at the bachelor party and striking out the baseball. Because one thing we know about Shane is he's a little boy and he has no control over his emotions. And what happened was, I know what happened. He came home that night and he was upset about his performance and he took it out on Natalie. And he ended up saying a whole lot of mean things to Natalie, some really, really cruel things. And that really rattled Natalie. She was like, in the interview, she was like, she really loved him. He was her best friend, but she was having a hard time with this fight. And it really was putting her on edge. So then when Shane was talking to his friends, he started explaining to his friends that, oh, me and Natalie got into this really big fight. And then his friend said, and he said, like always or something. And his friend was like, what do you mean like always? And Shane said, yeah, because she always finds a reason to put me down. She always finds a reason to find something I'm doing wrong. And there it is right there. It's what we've been seeing, the dynamic between these two all the time. That Shane needs constant validation. And when he doesn't get it, he feels like Natalie's putting him down. And he said to Natalie the night before, well, if you think all these things about me, why should we get married? Why should you get married? He said he doesn't like having to always prove himself to Natalie. But that's not really what's going on with Shane. He isn't having to constantly prove himself to Natalie. What he's doing is he's constantly seeking attention and validation from Natalie. And that's not Natalie making him do that. That's within Shane. Shane needs some therapy. So in this one, they actually asked Shane first to say I do or not I do. And Shane said, I do. He still chose Natalie. He said, I do 1,000 times over. But guess what? Natalie said no. She said no. And I was happy for this one too, because like I said, Even though I thought these two were going to say yes together, I really never thought they were a good match. And let me tell you, God has a funny way of showing up, because that argument that was brought to Natalie last night, that Shane brought, that was the argument she needed to pause. And you know what? She better be glad it showed up on her front door, because I really believe it has saved Natalie. If Natalie hadn't had that argument, she herself even said she was going to say yes, because she really did love Shane. And I know what Natalie said was that, you know, maybe we could still date, maybe we could still get to know each other, but there's some things we need to work out. They're not going to go out after this show, because one is the pride and the ego of Shane is not going to allow it. He needs constant validation, and there is no way he's going to recover from this rejection. And you know what, Natalie, that is for the best. You don't need to be working nothing out with Shane. You need to go your separate ways and find someone new. So Sal and Mallory, and here's Mallory showing up to the wedding. Her sister did come. I didn't think none of her family would come. Her mother and father didn't come. Her other brothers and sisters didn't come. And I said right there, this is a bad sign. I said before, not having your family support, that's a big, big deal. A big deal. I was saying, you know what? Last week, before this, I was saying, I don't know if Mallory's going to say yes. I can't see her going against her family when you don't have no family support like this. And I actually think it's really foul that her family didn't show up for her. I think it is really foul. But it tells me so much about how Mallory has become who she is, because I have said that Mallory is shifty. She's not loyal, and she has a coldness to her. And when I see the way that her family didn't show up for her, I know exactly where it comes from. So when they were doing the pre-interviews, Mallory was confessing her love about Sal. She was saying how much she loves him. Her sister was there, and her sister was asking, "Are you sure?" And Mallory's like, "I'm so sure. I love him. He's the one I want to spend the rest of my life with. I could see myself spending the rest of my life with him." How wonderful he made her feel. And her sister was sitting over there in the corner like this, as if she didn't believe her sister, as if she wasn't buying into it or anything. It's almost like her sister came, but she still had the same old lousy look on her face. And so when they got up to the altar on this particular situation, they asked for Sal to go first, and he said no, y'all. Woo! This was another one I was happy about, because Sal deserves so much more. Like how when we said Deepti deserves so much more, Sal deserves so much more than Mallory. And you know what? Mallory was shook. And here's another prediction. I think if they would have asked Mallory first, Mallory was going to actually say yes. I think Mallory thinks she could have shown up at that wedding, done as little as she did for Sal, and still said yes. And you know what? After it was over with and Mallory started walking back down the aisle, you could see the look on her face was like she was mad. She was angry. I know Mallory was going to say yes. She was going to say yes. But you know what else I like that happened? When Mallory left and Sal was standing there, and he turned and he looked at the family and he says, "I'm going to address her family." But you know what he was saying? He was saying, "Y'all did this." And it is so true. He was saying, "Y'all did this." And what he said was, without family support, there was no way Sal was going to say yes. I think Sal was waiting to see if Mallory's parents were going to show up, if they was going to support him. And when he saw that their parents didn't support her and that family didn't come, he was like, I'm not going to no family like this. Me and my family are tight. I'm not marrying a woman where she's not giving me her all and her family has already rejected me. Good for you, Sal. Good for you. If people don't learn nothing from this, they better learn leave and cleave. Mallory better learn now, leave and cleave. She better separate herself from her family a little bit, because let me tell you, her family got in the way. Because if her family would have been supportive, they could have helped her get through her emotions of whatever and why she didn't become vulnerable. If her family had really supported her, maybe she would have been more comfortable releasing those emotions and vulnerability. And then Sal would have seen that, and then Sal would have said yes. But you know what? Gone, Mallory, gone. Now afterward, Sal was like, "Let's take it slow. Let's go out on a date." And Mallory's like, she would love that. I don't know if Mallory's going to change. I really don't know. Unless she leaves from that family and cleaves to Sal and makes him realize that he's number one and important to her, I don't know if they'll be able to get past these sort of differences in their personalities. Jarrette and Iyanna, they saved them for the last. And let me tell you, oh, was I boo-hooing, boo-hooing, boo-hooing. Oh my goodness. So anyway, in the pre-interviews, you know, they show Iyanna and they were started talking about Iyanna saying how he is so empathetic, and that they were saying that he is so empathetic and that he has such great character. And she was saying how Jarrette makes her feel so special. And I was saying, oh, okay. So there's been a lot going on behind the cameras that we didn't see. Because you know what? The cameras didn't show us all these reassurances Jarrette was giving Iyanna. All we saw was the parts of Iyanna that it seemed like he wasn't nurturing. But lo and behold, behind the cameras, Jarrette was doing a whole lot of nurturing, because the stuff that Iyanna was saying, we had never seen none of that. But you know what? I believed Iyanna. And then when they started showing Jarrette, and Jarrette was talking about he loves Iyanna from the moon and back, and he was talking about he loves Iyanna from infinity and beyond, I was like, oh my gosh. This man is in love. And I was saying, you know what? This is not an act. This is real. I said, this is not an act. This is real. And I started to say, oh my God, he's going to say yes. I know we were all worried whether he was going to say yes or Iyanna was going to say yes. I know I came in worried. But when you started hearing their sort of interviews before the wedding, I started thinking, oh my gosh, we might get 2 yeses. And when Jarrette started talking about, he was saying he's never been more sure in his life in the pre-interviews. And his friends started asking him, are you ready to leave the streets? Because they're going to be calling for you. And they said, are you going to pick up when the streets call for you? And Jarrette was like, sorry, ain't nobody available at this number. You know, you got a bad connection. And I was like, oh my God, look at Jarrette. He was talking about, I can't answer that call. I was like, look at Jarrette. He is all in. And then they showed Iyanna and her parents came in, and her parents were like, I'll support whatever you do. Now, this is the difference between Iyanna's parents and Mallory's parents. Let me tell you, Iyanna's mama, she's me. She is me all day long, because what her mama said was, listen, whatever you decide, you decide. I'm going to be here to support you. But if you let me know if you need me to fight somebody, that is me all day long. There is no way I will let a daughter of mine be at an altar about to get married and I don't support her. Even if I'm as scared for her, even if I'm scared that she's about to walk into an area that frightens me to death, there is no way I would not support a daughter of mine. Absolutely not. They are up at the altar, and when Iyanna comes in, Jarrette is so happy. He's darn near about to cry. She's so beautiful. And their vows are beautiful. And Iyanna's like, I was made for you. You were made for me. And so when they walked up to the altar and Jarrette was started talking about he never met a woman that loved him so much through his flaws and made him feel so accepted. And I was like, oh my goodness, Jarrette is actually going to say yes. And then Iyanna said, you know, that they were made for each other, and that he was made for her and she was made for him. And they both said yes. Oh my God, I just boo-hooed and cried. I was just so happy, y'all. And it was so funny. And they were like, is love blind? And that mama looked and said, it better be. I am that mother all day long. That's the same way I would have been feeling. But they walked away and they walked down the aisle and they were so happy. And these two are just so playful with each other and fun with each other. And they're like, we married forever. And he was like, she was like, you got my back. And he was like a thong and a crack. It was so funny and cute. And I just love this love story. And he talked about how he was scared because when they asked Iyanna if she said I do, and he was like, well, it was well worth the wait. She took so long to say the answer and he got scared, but he was like, she is well worth the wait. And let me tell you, I could see it in Jarrette's eyes. And I'm so happy that Iyanna said yes. I'm so happy that she took this leap of faith. I know a lot of people didn't want her to say yes to Jarrette, but I was one of the people where I hoped that she would. So I'm glad I got my fairy tale ending, and I just hope that, you know what, it lasts forever. But that's it, y'all. This was such a good season. I know other people thought last year was better, but I really, really enjoyed this season a whole lot. Talk to you later, y'all. Bye.